Have you ever made a dish that maybe you've made it so many times, but then you tweaked it and did a little something different and it turned out better than ever? And then you have to kind of go back and try to figure out what you did different and recreate the dish. That's what we're going to do today with this white chicken chili. So jump on in and make it with me. Hi, I'm Mary Catherine, and welcome to my table. Do not let this counter scare you. It looks like so many ingredients sitting out, but this really is such a simple dish where you just throw things in your crock pot and then you can just leave it and come back in a few hours and have a delicious meal. There are so many recipes out there for white chicken chili, and they are all delicious. I've made one particular recipe for years, but what we're going to do today is try to recreate the last time I made it because I did a few things different and it was so good. This recipe calls for 4 cups of chicken broth, and I'm going to use the Better Than bouillon to make my own broth. So I'm going to go ahead and get that going first and just stick it in the microwave while we assemble the rest of the ingredients. You just follow the directions on the jar. It's about 1 teaspoon per cup. So this is 4 cups. We want about 4 teaspoons. And I always add just a touch extra because there's just so much good flavor in this. So use 4 teaspoons and then maybe just a little bit extra if you want that extra bit of flavor. Okay, I'm going to get this going, then we'll get our other ingredients. Now, the nice thing about this is it really is one of those recipes that you just kind of dump and go. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I have rotisserie chicken that I've just shredded, and we're going to start with that today. If you don't have rotisserie chicken, you can also just use regular chicken breast, or you could even use frozen chicken breast. You could just put it in the crock pot completely frozen, and it will cook while your soup cooks. And then toward the end, you'll just want to take that chicken out and shred it yourself. But right now, I'm using rotisserie chicken, and I probably have maybe 4 cups of chicken. And now we're going to start opening some cans. We're going to use a combination of the cannellini beans. These are the white kidney beans. And we're also going to use some black beans today. Now, if you have other kinds of beans, they will work fine in this too. If you have Great Northern, or if you had navy beans, or just some other kind that you wanted to use, that would be perfectly fine. But what I'm going to do with all the beans is I'm going to just drain them and rinse them before we add them to the crock pot. So I'm going to do the cannellini first. And then I'm just going to give it a quick rinse. I might use this to just catch that extra liquid. All right, now let's do the same thing with our black beans. And I'm using 2 cans of each. This is going to make a really full crock pot of soup. It's going to be plenty for a large family. If your family's not quite as large, you'll have plenty of leftovers. It's a great dish to share when you have friends or family come over. It just makes a lot. Okay, let's rinse these black beans really well. All right, now this is something you don't have to add. Some recipes don't call for it, but mine calls for some of the whole kernel corn as well. And I'm only going to do 1 can of this. And again, I'm gonna just drain it real quick. And we don't really need to rinse that. It'll be fine just the way it is. Okay, now just a couple more cans of things. We're going to use, this is the Rotel. This is, just the diced tomatoes with green chilies. And to be honest, this is where I can't remember exactly if I used 1 or 2 cans before. So I'm going to start with 1 can, and I'm going to see what it looks like in the crock pot. And then we'll decide if we need to go back and add that 2nd can or not. Don't you hate it when you just can't remember what you did? And then we're also going to use just a can of the chopped green chilies. Now, this is just the mild flavor. If you prefer the hot, if you like more heat, get the hot. We're going to do mild, though. And I'm not going to rinse these. We're just going to dump them in the way that they are. Okay. We'll save that other can and see if we need it. And then I have some chopped onions. This is a sweet yellow onion. You can use a white if you prefer, but I like the sweet yellow onion in this. This is probably about half a cup of onion. And this is going to sound funny because this is one place that I'm also going to use some of the dry minced onion in our recipe today. And the reason is when I made it last time that it tasted so good, I didn't have a whole lot of onion, fresh onion. So I only used a little bit, maybe about that much, but I wanted more onion in it because the recipe called for more. So I added some of this dry minced onion to finish it out. And I don't know if you've ever used this or not. I really do like it. I'm going to use about 3 teaspoons of the dry minced onion. I feel like it's one of those things that it packs a lot of flavor, but it doesn't have quite the same bite as a fresh onion. So some recipes, I really just kind of prefer this anyway, depending on what it is. But I used a little bit of both last time, so I'm going to do it this way today too. All right, let's get that chicken broth. Okay, that looks pretty good. Before we add it, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add our spices. We're going to go with cumin first. We're going to add a teaspoon of cumin. We're going to do a little chili powder, about a teaspoon of that as well. Now we want about a half a teaspoon of oregano. And then about a half a teaspoon of salt. And then we want about a fourth of a teaspoon of black pepper. And I'm just going to kind of sprinkle a little bit over the top. Not like that. It's probably a fourth of a teaspoon. And here's the other thing that was a little bit different last time. The recipe that I had used for years called for ranch seasoning packets. And I only had one, but I was making a very large recipe, so I really needed 2 because I was almost doubling the recipe. So I used one ranch seasoning packet, and then I found a recipe with the different spices that we have just added and put that in there as well. So I'm going to do kind of like I did before. I'll use 1 packet of this, and then we've added some spices. So let's sprinkle this on. This is going to give good flavor, and it also helps thicken the soup just a bit. I'm also going to come in with some garlic. And I'm going to use the equivalent of about 3 cloves of garlic. So I'm just going to squeeze about 3 good dollops in here. That would be about 3 cloves of garlic. There we go. Okay, now let's add our chicken broth. I'm going to stir it up just a little bit. And I think what I did last time, just look at all those good beans and vegetables, tomatoes and onions, and the chicken. It already smells good, and it hasn't even started cooking. Okay, that's a good little mix. All right, I think what I did was add a little bit of extra water because I had added some extra cans of beans. This is a little more than one recipe. So I'm going to add about 1 cup of water. About like that. And I do think, because of how this looks, like where it comes up in my crock pot, I think I did have that second can of Rotel, the diced tomatoes and green chilies. So I'm going to open that up and add it now. And this is such a forgiving recipe. As you can see, from all the different things that we're adding and the different amounts, I mean, you really can't go wrong. When you just put some of these ingredients together with these seasonings, it's going to be delicious. And like I said, use a different kind of bean if you want to. You can do the corn if you want, like I did. You can leave the corn out. Add those extra green chilies, add extra rotel. I mean, you just about can't go wrong with this recipe. So don't you love recipes like that? All right, that looks about like how much I made because it is so close to the top of my crock pot. Now, the very last ingredient that we're going to add to this is some cream cheese. I do it now at the beginning. You can wait and add it later in the cooking process if you like, but it does just fine to add it now. And I just kind of cube it up into some fairly good sized chunks. But you would definitely want to go in and add this maybe 30 minutes to an hour before your soup is going to be served. But like I said, I just go ahead and do it at the beginning. We are going to use an 8-ounce block. That's actually what one recipe calls for. And here's about the size of the cubes I do. I just kind of go in like this. But last time, because I was adding some extra beans and ingredients like that to make it a bigger recipe, I went in, I didn't use a whole second block. I used maybe about a fourth of another block of cream cheese, and it was perfect. So I'm going to go in with that as well. Okay, so from our second block, I'm just going to cut about a fourth of it and then get those chunks and add to the last of our soup here. And now the final step is to turn it on. I cook this on low for about 4 to 6 hours. Now, if you are using raw chicken, particularly if it's frozen, you may want to do it a little bit longer than that, maybe 6 to 7 hours. But with the rotisserie chicken, it's not going to need as long to cook. So I'm going to do 4 to 6 hours on low. If you need to do it faster, you can do it on high and cut that time down by a couple of hours. But I'm going to plug my crock pot in and set ours on low. And I'm going to set it for 4.5 hours, and then I'm going to come and check on it then. And then we will have the true test of whether I really did recreate the last batch of soup that I made. The crock pot has turned to warm, and it is time to check our soup. This is the true test of whether I was able to replicate what I did before. It certainly smells delicious. Let's stir this up, and we'll get that cream cheese incorporated into it. And that's just going to help make a good creamy base for this soup. I think I'm going to let it cook just a little bit longer, but we're going to do a taste test now just to see how our flavor is, okay? A little bit of everything in there. A little corn, little black beans, some of that tomatoes and peppers. Okay. That's really good, but I'm going to be honest. It's not quite as good as what I made last time. I think what we need is just a little bit more of that chicken bouillon. So let me get that out and add a little bit more to it and let it cook for another hour or two. I think that flavor is just going to make it a little bit richer, and that's what it's missing this time. So let's do that. We already have enough liquid in our soup. So what we need is just a little bit of this base. So I'm going to get probably maybe another teaspoon. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it in there. And then stir it around. And then just give it time for the flavors to just come together a little bit more. All right, I'm going to set my timer on the crock pot for about another hour and a half, okay? Then we'll put our lid on and let it go just a little bit longer. All right. We'll have to check it again in a while. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes since we added that little bit of the chicken bouillon to it. So I've just given it a taste test. Let me taste it one more time for you here on camera. It is very, very close to what I made last time. Mm-hmm. That gave it just a little bit of extra richness that it needed, that flavor richness in the soup. So that's it. I'm going to put the recipe on our website, marycatherine'stable.com, and we'll link it in the first comment for you as well. And I'll have all the ingredients listed just exactly like we did it today, with adding the little bit of extra chicken bouillon. So you will have the recipe that turned out better than ever for the white chicken chili. All right. So that's it for Mary Catherine's Table today. I'm so glad you were with me. I always love it when you're here for our videos. Share them with your friends, hit the subscribe button, and you'll be sure to get notified when we have new videos that come out. Thanks again for joining me. I hope that your family will enjoy this white chicken chili as much as we do. And remember to go out today and find someone who needs a little bit of kindness and give them some of yours.